Hey everyone, it's May and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, my name is May and I just recently got back from doing Tapif in France last year. I was in La Rochelle and I taught high school and middle school. So I wanted to make a few videos just kind of talking about my experience and sharing my tips and tricks, knowledge, advice, etc. on certain topics for you guys if anyone was interested. I know before I went, there was a lot of information about how to get your visa and kind of the whole process of getting ready to go to France and getting established once you get there, whole bank account, everything with your school, but not a whole lot of information on the actual teaching itself or what it's like to be an assistant in the classroom. So I actually wanted to start with that for this first video. So I will be sharing kind of my experience actually inside the classroom, what your role is as an assistant, specifically what it looked like for me. It can definitely vary a lot, so just keep in mind with this video and with all my videos, I'm just sharing my experience and I just have my notes on my phone, so I'm going to be referring to that. Just some background on the middle schools and high schools in France. Middle school is actually 4 years, which is different than in the US. Usually we have like 6th to 8th or just 7th and 8th, but in France it's actually 6th to 9th grade, our equivalent of 9th grade, and then high school is only 3 years, so it's just 10 through 12. I actually didn't know that before going, so that was kind of a surprise to me. If you're in a middle school, you'll kind of have a wide variety of language learners. You'll have the 6th graders who at my middle schools were just starting to learn French. Some schools start them like in elementary school, obviously, because people are placed at that level too. But for me, the middle schoolers that were the youngest were literally just starting to learn English. And then by the time they're in 9th grade, they're able to do a lot more, obviously. So you kind of have a range there. In middle school, it's called CCM, and then it goes down from there. So then the next one up is cinquième, then quatrième, and then troisième. In high school, there's, like I said, 3 different levels. It's called seconde, première, and terminale. And in high school, I would say like by the time they get to terminal, or that's our equivalent of senior year, they're really, really advanced. Like even in the premiere level, they're already doing other things in English. It's not just about learning grammar. They're having discussions about geopolitics and literature and like all these things in English. And so yeah, it's just like way more advanced than our foreign languages in high school, so just be prepared for that. So as I said, I chose the secondary level, so I worked in middle school and high school. I was assigned to 2 middle schools and 1 high school. I'm pretty sure 3 is the maximum amount of schools they can assign you to, and I found 3 to be a lot. It was a bit overwhelming at first because I had to learn 3 different sets of teachers and 3 different campuses, and I had to learn a commute to 2 of the schools. Luckily I lived at my high school, so I just had to learn how to get to the other schools by bus, and just keeping track of all of my schedules was a lot at the beginning, but I definitely got the hang of it as it went on. So if you're also assigned to 3 schools, like just keep in mind that you might kind of have a bit of overwhelm at the beginning, but it definitely gets easier. The way my hours were split up was I had 6 hours at the high school and then 3 hours at each of the middle schools every week. I would have preferred to maybe have, I don't know, like 12 hours at the high school and then just 3 hours at one middle school, but you don't have a say over that. So I just think it would have been nicer to like get to know one place and like one, you know, set of kids and teachers better, but that's just how it works. I got to France about a week and a half before classes started, just to kind of get everything squared away with like my administrative tasks, like setting up my bank account, getting my school ID cards, keys, all of that. And I was able to visit each of the 3 schools, get a tour, get, like I said, my ID cards and keys, get to know the teachers, and I got to observe a few classes. So if you're able to do that, I know not everyone is for whatever reason, but if you're able to get to France a little bit early, I would highly recommend that, just so that you can kind of get your bearings, and then it'll make that first week of class a bit less hectic and stressful. So kind of how my schedule worked was at 2 schools, I had an every other week schedule. So meaning one week I would meet with one set of classes, and then the next week I'd meet with a completely other set of classes. And so that's why it was a lot to keep track of. And then at the 3rd school, my schedule changed every week, and then some of the classes just repeated over time. So yeah, it was just a lot, but eventually I got the hang of it. If I could have changed something about it, like I said, I would have just like spent more time with like certain groups of kids, because it was kind of hard to get to know the kids and like remember their names and stuff because I had so many different classes. Then my schedule changed completely in January. I did keep a few of the same classes throughout the whole year, so I got to know them better. And in that second spring schedule, I had a few classes that were the same every week, which was really nice. I felt like I connected with them a lot more too. For the most part, I would say that the way it worked was that for the first class we had, I would stay with the whole class and the teacher, and I would do my presentation, and I'm going to do a whole video on that. But basically, they asked me to make a presentation just kind of about me, my life in the US, my hometown, etc. Even if your teachers don't specifically ask you to do that over email before you get there, I would really recommend just kind of whipping something up just to have in your back pocket. It's a really nice way to introduce yourself to the kids. Like I said, I'll go more in depth in that other video. Anyway, so after that, for all the subsequent classes, I would take half the class into another classroom and do some kind of speaking activity with them, and then we'd switch halfway through the hour and I'd take the other group. Some teachers preferred that I have half the class for the full hour, and then the next time we saw each other I took the other half, so I kind of just had to plan my lessons accordingly to make sure that I had enough material. It could look like this for you, or the teacher might prefer to just have you with the whole class and just help out that way. So that was the case with the Spanish assistant and the Russian assistant I was friends with. For most of their classes, they were with the full class. I did that a little bit, but I'll get to that. So that was, for the most part, what work looked like for me. Sometimes the teachers wanted to focus on conversation, so we would actually split the class up into smaller groups and switch like every 10 or 15 minutes, and that way I could just have like really small groups to focus on conversation. But overall, I'd say like for 90% of the classes, it was half the class for half the time. As for the actual content of the lessons you're giving, it's going to vary a lot. So again, this is just what I did, but some teachers gave me complete free reign and they were like, do whatever you want, just make them speak. Some teachers had specific worksheets they wanted me to do. Others gave me like, hey, this is the topic we're working on. It would be great if you could like make something that would connect to that. And so for high school, I ended up having to like learn about all these things that they were learning about so that I could, you know, be somewhat knowledgeable on the subject. I found that in the fall, I was planning most of my own material, just the way my schedule shook out. And then in spring, the teachers had a lot more already planned. So for example, this literature class that I worked with, they just had these oral presentations and I was just helping the students kind of refine their ideas and giving them some advice. And so some of the classes were more like that. And plus I also had all of those fall lessons in my back pocket so I could repeat some of them. The best advice I can give for lesson planning if you are doing your own is just to look online. Like there are so many online resources, like you do not have to be writing up everything yourself. One website that I use a lot was called ISL Collective, and they have a ton of worksheets. Something that's really easy to do for the middle schoolers, especially like for holidays, is to just get fun worksheets or come up with a game. Like we did Christmas bingo, they loved it. There's just so many fun ideas online for like holidays, and then that is like an easy, oh, there's my topic, like I already know for that week, okay, like that's near Thanksgiving, we'll do this, the next time we'll do something for Christmas, and it already takes care of so many of your classes that way. I'm also going to do a video later going into depth on some of the lesson plans I did. I'm going to kind of talk about which age group I would use it for. You will have an orientation where you'll get some ideas because you guys do a lot with that and you actually kind of participate in the lessons that you would be giving to your students and the activities. Also, I would definitely join the Facebook group if you're not already part of it. If you just look on Facebook, like Tapif, in your case it would be 2022 to 2023, there should be a group for that, and then there also should be one specifically for your region. And if you're looking for a lesson on a specific topic, you can ask for ideas or see if anyone's done it in the past. So now it's kind of moving on to the students and like classroom management and that side of things. Actually, I just want to preface this by saying I miss the students even more than I thought that I was going to. I really miss them. Anyway, so overall I'd say working with the high schoolers was more my vibe. There are pros and cons to both age groups. So the biggest issue I had with middle schoolers was behavior. Not sure that that's much of a surprise. Some kids refused to participate in whatever activity I was doing. Some talked over me while I was giving instructions, and some of them were roughhousing, throwing their pencils and erasers at each other. It's kind of to be expected. I was more or less able to manage it myself, but you can also talk to your teachers if there are specific kids that are causing problems. Your teachers are there to help you, and every time I came to a teacher with a behavioral issue, something was done about it. So they were really good at being responsive in that way. What happened with me was there was one class that just had a lot of behavioral issues. It wasn't really one student in particular, but the whole class was really, really talkative, wouldn't listen to me when I told them to be quiet. It was really frustrating. And what we did is we just switched. And so I took another one of her classes instead, and it was no big deal. This happened again in the spring. The teacher had like warned me that it was going to be a really hard class. And like after the first day, she was like, you know what, I think I'm just going to have you stay with me because it just wouldn't have worked to split them up. They were a handful. So we just stayed together and I would look over their work, demonstrate pronunciation, things like that, and it was fun. And then the pros of the middle schoolers is their enthusiasm, especially with the younger ones. Like some of my CCM classes were just so sweet. Not all of them were like this, but some of them were just so interested in me and eager to learn, and they just think everything is so fun. Like, I think I'm going to talk about this in my lesson plan video, but sometimes I would just do an activity where I crumpled up a piece of paper into a ball and toss it to a student, and they had to say a sentence in a specific structure. I like blank, and then throw it to someone else, and they were so excited and they had so much fun with it. It's just so easy to plan lessons for middle schoolers that they're going to enjoy because they think everything's fun. So I had some really good times with them. For high schoolers, the main issue I dealt with was them being reluctant to participate. They've kind of gotten self-conscious by that point. They don't want to speak English because it's not cool, you know? With the Sagons, the younger high schoolers, I still had some classroom management issues with them, like getting to listen or being too rowdy, but a lot of times if a class had a lot of energy and was rowdy, I would just kind of adapt my lessons for that and do something that made them get up and go to the board, or do something competitive like turn it into a game so that they could get their energy out, and it usually worked and they enjoyed it. But what can be harder with the high schoolers is when you have a class that's really low energy and they just don't want to participate and they don't care. That's what I really struggled with, was like trying to find ways to get them interested, and I don't know that I ever really hacked this because I would try to, you know, ask questions in different ways, or I told them like, you know, it's okay if you mess up, like this isn't about speaking perfectly, like we're just supposed to discuss this topic, if their teacher had given me something specific. But yeah, some of them just didn't really want to talk. And so it can be really frustrating when you're in the teacher position, feeling like you're pulling teeth basically, but you just have to work through it. I think the best thing you can do is try to make them comfortable, like letting them know that you're not there to judge them, things like that. But I think some kids just like really didn't care. My favorite kids to work with in high school were the oldest ones, because I think at that point they really saw the value of learning English. Like when they're applying to colleges and stuff, they kind of realize how important it is. Whereas like when they're in middle school or early high school, they're still kind of like, oh, whatever, it's just a class I have to take. And a lot of them were really, really appreciative of the help I gave them, which was a really nice feeling. I had two specific favorite classes in the high school that I really liked working with. One of them was actually a Sagan class, and they were the perfect balance of being really calm and quiet when I was talking. Like it was actually insane, like you could hear a pin drop, which like never happened in any of my other classes. But they also really wanted to participate, and they were just the sweetest group of kids. And I told the teacher, like, they're just amazing, and she's like, I know, I got so lucky, like they're so kind and respectful, it's just the best group. And so it was just a wonderful experience. Like I loved making lessons for them. And then the other class was a literature class that I had in spring, and I met with them every week. It was at 8 a.m., which was rough, but it was okay because it was a good class. They were so good at English, because to take the literature class you have to be basically fluent, I think, like you have to be at a certain level, and they were all really high level in English and just so intelligent. Like I was intimidated by them. But I thought that I had a lot to offer to that class because I actually majored in English in college and took a bunch of literature classes, and so I kind of understood their projects and what they were working on, and I was able to give them what I thought was pretty valuable like advice and feedback, because that was the class where they were working on like an oral presentation. They had to take like a few different works of literature and a piece of artwork or something and connect it to a theme, and that's what I had to do so much in college. So anyway, it was really fun and rewarding to work with them. And at the end of that class, some of the kids actually came up to me and said that I had helped them a lot. It just made my whole experience to hear that. So yeah, so that's kind of an overview of what being an assistant is like, at least for me. Like I said, it can definitely look different depending on the school, depending on where you are. I had a really great experience with my teachers. Literally all my teachers were so kind and so willing to help me with anything I needed. One of them picked me up from the train station, one of them took me out for ice cream, one of them took me shopping to get stuff for my apartment. They always said that I could like call them if I needed to for anything. I got a few offers to go to Christmas at their houses too. Ended up spending Christmas with another assistant, but they were just such kind and generous people, and I really enjoyed working with them. Just a final note on teaching, just keep in mind that you're not there to make the students fluent. So don't get frustrated if you don't see a huge improvement in their English, because likely you'll have a schedule kind of similar to mine where you're in just like a bunch of different classes. I think that's a kind of a common thing with the program. So the point isn't really to work with one group of kids the whole time and get them fluent in English. It's kind of just to expose a lot of different kids at a lot of different schools in France to American culture and to get them excited about learning the language by doing fun activities. And that's kind of the fun of being a language assistant. Like, you're in a pretty ideal role because you can just have fun with them without having to grade them or test them. But your job is really just to get them excited about learning the language. And it's honestly pretty easy to be liked by the kids too, especially the middle schoolers, because you're kind of this exotic guest and you're something different in their day that brings interest to them. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head, like that's kind of why you're there. At least that's what I took away from it. They'll think you're so cool because you're from the US. I'm like, oh my god. Or wherever you're from, maybe you're not from the US watching this. Anyway, so yeah, that is my teaching experience. The next video I'm gonna post is kind of the other aspects of Tapif, like finances, traveling, just like general living stuff. That I wanted to start out with this because I really think that this is what I wanted to see. Like, I wanted to find out more about this before I left because the teaching part was giving me a lot of anxiety. And I also just wanted, actually, a final note. I just want to say that if you're someone like me who has a lot of anxiety and social anxiety, that don't let that stop you from like going ahead with this program. Like, I have a fear of public speaking, like still do, and the first time I did my presentation I was terrified, but you just get used to it. I promise. And I feel like now if someone just stuck me in front of a group of kids and wanted me to engage them in an activity, I could do it. It's just like second nature to me now, and you will get used to it and it'll get easier. So that's just my little parting words. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope this video was helpful, and if you have any other questions that I didn't cover about specifically being an assistant in the classroom, please let me know and I can speak more about my experience down below, and I will have those other videos that I mentioned coming soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.